Hello, everyone. Welcome to Masters in Travel. I'm your host, Whitney. A question that I have long been pondering and that I ask many advisors, whoever will talk to me, and today I've convinced Julie to come on and talk to me about it live, is what would we do differently knowing what we know now about ourselves, about being an entrepreneur, and about the travel industry? What would we do differently if we went back and started our agency all over again today? And in chatting with our guest today, I also realized that also what is really important to discuss is what we would do exactly the same. Like, what did we do right from the very beginning, whether it was intentional or not? And so today, that's what we're going to dive into. Joining me today is Julie Lanham, president of Vacations to Remember. Julie, it's so great to have you. Thank you for agreeing to come chat with me.
It's my honor. Thank you.
So give for anyone who doesn't know you or hasn't met you, can you give us the 60-second rundown of your experience in the travel industry just to provide a little context?
Yep. I started when I was 15 in 1985, working for a local storefront travel agency. My mother was a flight attendant, and my father loved to go on trips with her. And he was like, "Hey, find us a hotel." So not easy. So that kind of like sparked my interest. So a local travel agency was hiring, the errand girl to just like stamp brochures, put together, we used to staple itineraries inside of ticket jackets. That was my job. It was very
Mhm.
important. And from there, I grew in that role, graduated high school, went to college for travel and tourism,
Fascinating.
went to work at a different corporate travel agency, worked for Air Canada and reservations for a year, realized I'm travel advisor core. I'm not a res girl. I don't want to just be an order taker.
Hmm.
So I worked in storefront travel agencies for 10 years, a little over 10 years before I opened my own travel agency. So I guess I'm at exactly 40 years at this point.
So at 14, I was flipping burgers and making ice cream sundaes at like the local, not a Dairy Queen, but like the local ice cream shop. You were working at a travel agency. Was this just because you're in your house, your parents were talking about travel on, a frequent basis and you were like, well, there's this travel shop I could go work at? Or like, how did this come about for you that was your first job?
Yeah, it's funny. I've never worked in food and beverage, but everybody is like, You've never worked at a McDonald's?" I'm like, "No, the minute I was able to work, I worked in travel and I've never done anything different." So sometimes I fear, what would I do if I wasn't in travel? I don't know. It is very much who I am. Yeah, it probably just was born from, I feel like I'm most comfortable working in a professional setting. So I liked the idea of working in an office even at
Hmm.
that age. I always felt like I connected more with people who were older than me. So working with other people my age would not have been ideal for me at that age. I always kind of wanted to be with the grown-ups. So
Sure.
working in an office with the grown-ups was exactly perfect for me.
And as you progressed into graduating high school and then going to college and actually studying tourism, what was your thought process there? Like, what did you think about might be in your future? What were you hoping was in your future? Like, how did you anticipate that college degree was going to support you? Like, what was in your 18 and 19-year-old brain at the time?
I you know, Not a lot. I went to college because that's what you do. You go to
Yeah.
college. But literally in the first semester, I was like, "Yeah, no, I already know all this." Like they were teaching like where the best part of a cruise ship would be to minimize motion sickness, just things that I knew,
That's a
already. So
college degree?
travel and tourism.
That
It was
feels
in 1988.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't know if it's still
I don't know what that degree would be teaching you today, but um
maybe still where the best cruise ship area is. I don't know. Yeah. No, and they were I honestly, after a year, I was like, "Ugh," because it was a lot of hospitality stuff. It was for people who would be working in hotels and on
mhm,
cruise ships. It wasn't just for travel advisors.
gotcha.
Late I guess around the late 99, I actually started teaching a continuing education classes at our local college, and that was specifically about being a travel advisor. I wrote the curriculum, and that had
Oh,
nothing to do with
wow.
anything other than being a travel advisor.
Interesting.
But yeah, that travel and tourism coursework was pretty brutal because none of it really related to what I was doing or what I wanted
Mhm,
to do. So
mhm.
yeah, so and then I thought, well, let's try airline reservations and see if we like that. Nope, nope, didn't like that. So yeah, I went right back to travel. I loved corporate travel so much. It was like the best time. I just absolutely loved doing corporate travel. But there was a time and a place for it, and I love leisure travel more now, like so much
So
more. So
you went into like a corporate travel agency.
yeah,
Okay.
that's all they did was just corporate, no leisure. So yeah,
Okay.
business travelers were my guides, and I loved that. I loved helping them. At one point I thought I wanted to be an executive assistant for like the
Mhm.
president of a company or something, because I just loved organizing all those details and keeping their lives in order. And um, that was fun for a minute, but as I'm sure you can see, corporate travel is not very creative,
Mhm.
and you don't get to kind of like do anything with what you've learned or anything with your skills,
Right.
in that space. And then the airlines cut commissions in like 92, 3, and so corporate travel went out the window anyway. So the timing of me morphing into leisure, and that really worked out well for me.
So when you went into leisure, is that when you started your own business, or did you go to an agency setting to work in leisure at the beginning?
I moved from New York to Georgia in 1991, and I moved from one corporate agency in New York to another corporate agency in Georgia. And then when I decided I didn't want to be in corporate anymore, I worked at a different travel agency in Georgia, and I started in corporate and moved into leisure at that same travel agency, and I worked there for 5 years.
Mhm.
And then I left and started my own, and it was really only because I had a baby and I wanted to be home with him. And it was right around the time the internet was becoming a thing, and nobody was really walking into the office anymore. People used to walk into the office, sit at our desk, and we would plan a trip for
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
right in there, which is hilarious. We ever did it that way. But that wasn't really happening anymore. So I just asked my boss if I could go work from home because nobody was coming in. Nobody worked from home. It was 1997. And I told him, I said, don't even pay me a salary. I was making $8 an hour at the time. I said, you don't even have to pay me a salary. Just pay me 30% commission of anything I book and we'll be good. And he said, no. So I said, well, then I got to go. So, and I just, with no host agency, no, that wasn't, there really wasn't host agencies back then. Like the agencies that I'd always worked for had what they called outside sales agents, which were usually former travel agents who didn't want to do it full time anymore, who were going to just do it part time, and they were going to use that local travel agency as their host. But like
Yeah.
these big mega hosts, that
Right.
was not even on my radar. So I had no
Right.
choice but to go ahead and get an IATA and start from the bottom. But I am
Okay.
very proud I took no clients with me. I just started from scratch and built it from nothing, and worked from home for the first, I don't know, 8 years. And then I got an office and, all the things. So here we are.
So this is such an interesting story because I think that as I think about this, to how I would answer the question, the number one thing that comes to my mind is what I did wrong is jumping into entrepreneurship and the travel industry at the same time. And
Yeah.
like at any given moment, I was simultaneously, and you can kind of say sales because it's not just entrepreneurship, it's entrepreneurship specifically as it relates to understanding how to talk with clients, how to paint a picture and tell a story and talk about investment ranges, and like this is also like these are sales types of skills. I had never worked in the travel industry. I worked in a hotel, but I worked in operations. And so yes, I was in the industry, but it's so different.
Completely
I don't
different.
know
Yeah.
that it can really be directly comparable to what we're doing today. I had worked in service. I had worked like in restaurants as a waitress and a bartender, so I understood how to, talk to people. But that's not sales per se, right? Like this
And
is
it's not
way more
marketing.
advanced than upselling a beverage, right? Like this is like this is not, again, not
A
comparable.
little.
And I had never owned a business. So
What made you think, here's my question for you. What made you think you had to own a business in order to be a
I
travel
didn't know there
advisor?
was any other option.
That's what drives me crazy. You know what's so funny? Every travel agency, like brick and mortar travel agency owner I know across the country, if somebody walked into their office right now and said, I would love to be a salaried travel advisor, they would hire them on the
If
spot.
you came to me
Experience and
today and said I would love to be a salary travel advisor, I would at least have a conversation with you.
Isn't it crazy? I do not understand what has happened in the last
There's
30
like
years.
a
Like,
chasm in like people want
it,
this, people are looking for this, but there is like a
they
gigantic grand
cannot.
can we cannot find each other.
I don't know if it's the MLMs, offering the whole work from home on your phone on the couch, travel the world, but stuff or whatever. But like, it's so appealing, but really, it's not that. So there's so many people. All of my current salaried employees started as ICs, and I flipped them to employees, and they work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They get all of
Are you
the
accepting
trips that they book.
applications? Because on
I
at
know,
least a daily basis, I consider it. This sounds
every
easier.
client. Right. Every client they work with has been vetted and has paid a fee through our office manager. Like, they don't touch a client until the fee has been paid and they've been onboarded appropriately. And they don't have to deal with wondering whether or not someone's going to book, work on commission, work 24/7. Like, it's just, I just want to take them and be like, you guys know how lucky you are, right? Like, how lucky you are, right?
So
But
so it's
it's a
it's
thing.
it's fat. So I'm not here to answer this question today for myself. I'm here to ask you how you would answer this question. But let's first start with like you since you were 15 years old. Like this is a tremendous amount of experience that you have to pull from. If something happened that you were going to start a travel agency tomorrow, what would you do exactly the same as you did the first time around?
I guess work in a travel agency. I almost get offended when people wake up and decide to become a travel advisor and have never worked as a travel advisor. And not only that, they're going to own a travel agency. I can't imagine if tomorrow I wanted to own a hair salon and I just decided to rent a space and start cutting hair
Well,
with no education, no
I was
training,
trying
no
to think of an
licensing.
analogy, right? And I don't even know if this is the best analogy, but I was like, it's almost like you want to own and manage a restaurant, but you've never actually been a waitress. You've never actually been a chef. You've never
But I've
actually
eaten food. I've been to restaurants and I've eaten food. So surely I can do it. I'm
actually, this is the
qualified.
perfect analogy because I think a lot of people think, well, I travel, I book my
Right.
own flights,
I
I
love to
research my
travel. You
hotel. I
what I tell my agents is that you have to love to plan the travel and let someone else do the travel more than you want to do the travel yourself,
Mhm.
because that's literally the job,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't know where that disconnect comes in, or when. And it actually, sometimes I'll see people who, they got into the business and now they're 5 years in and they're just sad. They're just like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is so much harder. I'm not traveling, and I need to travel because I need to see things, to sell things, but I can't travel because I'm working by myself. I have no one to run my business when I'm gone. So I have no support, no help. I'm working 20-hour days. I'm not making a lot of money because I'm commission based sales. And it takes a really long time to build a book of business to be able to make a decent salary. So, like, how did I get here? And I'm like, well, you decided to open up a business in an industry you knew nothing about. So that's what happens. And it's tough love. You know what I mean? For anybody
Yeah.
who's like, oh my God, that's me. Don't be mean. It's just, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about becoming a travel advisor, but you haven't taken the leap yet, I beg you to go work for someone. Just try to work for someone.
Well, and so I was also thinking about this and I was trying to figure out in my own head like what is the disconnect? Like why don't more people do this? And I do think that there's a challenge on both sides. I think that if you approached me today as an agency owner who is very busy and like I don't have all this extra time sitting around, and if you came to me and said, "I would like to own my own business someday, but I would like to work for someone to kind of understand the industry, understand how this works." But they were telling you up front, I'm leaving at some point and I intend to build my own book.
You're better off with a host at that point.
I still don't think so because then you're still starting as an entrepreneur, right? Like then you're still doing
True.
what we're telling you not to do. So I think
Yeah.
that it's
So maybe just don't be honest.
maybe just
Don't tell me that if you're going to leave one day. because I would not want to invest the time and energy and effort into training you and mentoring you
See,
if I
this is the
knew that
but
in
this is the
5, 10
problem
years. Yeah.
right here. This little agency ownership dilemma that we are having is the problem. This is why more people don't come and say, "Can I work for you?" knowing that they're going to leave, is because the owners don't have a good reaction. And I'm guilty of this. Like, this is
But
my
why do you
gut
want to own a
reaction
business?
is,
Why do you want, if you want to do something, if you, I don't know, what's your passion? You want to be a cop? Do you want to own the police station? If you want to be, any job, do you have to own it to do that job and enjoy it? I mean,
um,
plenty of people don't want to own a business. They just want to do the job.
I can
And
only
I don't know
speak
why
for
they
my
think they have to.
I can only speak for myself here, but I do, like, in the travel industry, I see a lot of people who want control. They want control of their time. They want control of their compensation. They want
And you
control
don't
of
get that when
their,
you own a travel
well,
agency.
I
You
get that
don't get
more.
control of your
I have
time.
more control today as an owner than I did as a corporate employee.
I guess to travel, yes, but you also are working nights and weekends and longer days, and I mean, right?
I'm
It's a
choosing,
trade-off, so I
but
get
I'm choosing that. In the corporate
Are
world,
you though? Are you
yeah,
choosing it because
I'm choosing it. I
because it you I say that too. I choose to work nights and weekends and all the things, but I really don't because I have to if I want this business to continue to grow at the rate that it's growing. I can't in good conscience just say I'm only working 40 hours a week and then just leave it to die because it's not going to grow and flourish like I want it to. So while
so
the clients don't own us, they kind of do.
this used to be my thought process, and now I feel like we're going down a different conversation path, which is fine. This used to be my thought process. It is no longer. I shifted this perspective and said, like, if I'm getting up, if I'm working outside of 9 to 5, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm not doing what my inbox is telling me to do. If I'm working on the weekends, I'm working on what I want to work on, not what some client is texting me about.
Same.
And I am taking better care of myself. I am sleeping more. I am going to more workout classes and, doing the things that I'm always like, oh, I don't have enough time to do. And the reality is that, like, my to-do list is a little bit longer, and also everything is fine. And what it has forced me to do is, instead of continuing to talk about what I'm going to delegate and what I'm going to give my team and that person that I'm going to hire so that they can support me in this way, it has absolutely forced me to sit down and focus and actually delegate it already, and give it up already, or hire someone to support me, instead of just talking about for 12 months about what I want to hire someone to support me with someday. It's actually forced me to do it. So I do still believe that I choose to work weekends, because there are a lot of weekends that I choose not to work and my business isn't crumbling.
I
Um,
agree with you completely on that, and I am the same way. I sometimes work on weekends, but it's usually stuff that I want to do because I just love what I do. But that's because I have so much help. I feel
yeah.
like I'm thinking more about people who are just 4 or 5 years in, they have no help and they're wanting to grow their business. Like I'm in a position now that my business is to the point where it doesn't even need to grow anymore. I'm super happy with where it's at. And even if it did grow, I've got the staff to manage that without it falling on me. But I'm thinking of the advisor who's 5 years in, doesn't have a team or a big team, and wants to grow, needs to grow. She really doesn't have control of her own time.
So I don't know. I think this depends on so many things. Instead of going immediately to, well, you must work nights and weekends to make this work. Like, sure, there's a little bit of that grind. There's a little bit of that grit that is maybe necessary. Um, I don't think that that's the only solution. I would actually ask about your processes, and ask about your efficiencies, and ask about what you're saying yes to. And are you saying yes to things that are taking you forever to plan because you don't know enough about them? I think there are some other questions that I would ask to dig into. Why do you need to work nights and weekends to make this work? But how did we get here? How did
I
we
know.
get down this
Well,
path of conversation, Julie?
I'll think
You
I will think
distracted me.
I'll I know, I'll get back on point, but I will say the reason why I worked nights and weekends 5 years in is because I had little kids at home and I wanted to be able to spend time with them during the day and I wanted to go to their class parties and I wanted to do things during the workday that caused me to then have to work nights and weekends.
We
So I'm
got here
sure that's
because we were
what a lot
talking
of
about
people.
control. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and
So
whether or not you need to own a business to be a travel advisor. That's
So I think
the
working
crux of it
nights and
all.
weekends because you're not working during the workday is a totally different situation than someone who's working nights and weekends in addition to working during the workday.
Right. And doing an 80-hour work
So
week
let's
because
be
they have to
clear
do it all.
about what it means when we say we're working nights and weekends. So I used to try to talk people out of starting a business and to being like just working as an employee or as a salaried advisor or something. And that never worked for me. And I think it's because I was talking to the wrong people. I was talking to people who were bound and determined to start their own business and to have the control or whatever we want to call it that comes with that. And so me trying to talk them into being an employee, like that was never going to succeed, but I was talking to the wrong kind of person. I think that back to if we did this all over again, you did work at an agency and you did have a tourism degree and you did know a lot about the travel industry long before you tried to be an entrepreneur. I did not. This is what I would do differently. If somebody came to me today and said, I want to start my own business. I want to work in an agency first to get the lay of the land and understand the industry, but my intention is to leave. And we were talking about as an owner, this is really hard to hear. Option one is don't be honest. Which, listen, you can go into any job and have a desire to not be there for the rest of your life and want to go on to something bigger and better. You
It's
make
always a risk.
you make a valid point that we don't talk about 2 years down the road when we plan to leave when we're sitting there interviewing for a job. So it's not lying. It's just simply like just be in the here and now and maybe not focus on what you think you want to do in the future because to your point, that might change. You shifted ICs to salary employees, and maybe when someone gets involved in an agency and they actually see the reality of being an entrepreneur, they think, maybe not. So I don't think it's don't be honest. I think it's more of just like focus on today and maybe not
Yeah,
focus on
keep your
what you.
options open.
Yeah. Secondly, as an owner, I've never done this. And this is literally my attempt at a solution that I came up with last night. So tell me what you think about this. I
Intrigued.
think I think my pushback as an owner has always been that what an owner is going to invest in time and resources and training a new person to be on their team is far more than anyone ever really expects. The longest employee who was with me for 2 years, and weekly it was still how do I do this? How do we handle this situation? And this isn't her not listening or not learning. This is the constant nuanced new types of situations that were coming up that her questions were valid. And so what I would want to do is I would want to protect and draw a boundary in between an employee and a mentorship role. Now, all of us in a corporate setting have mentors. I had a mentor in the corporate setting, and I still think of him in very high regard as my mentor. With that said, our mentorship moments were in passing. It was during our walk to the elevator because we had to walk 10 minutes to get to our meeting. It was walking together, to go have our lunch in the staff lunchroom. It was, all of the mentorship moments were in passing. It wasn't me sitting in his office in the middle of the workday for 45 minutes, just like peppering him with questions, right? So I think that I would draw that boundary and say, I support you if at any point you tell me that you might want to start your own travel business. But while you're my employee, you're going to be my employee and you're going to get the work done and we're going to do the trainings and we're going to have the SOPs and you're going to do what needs to be done. And then we're going to set aside once or twice a month, 30 or 60 minutes where it's like open game. Ask me what questions you want, right? But we're not going to just pepper me all day, every day with your questions, wanting to learn about the travel industry or wanting to learn about how to run a travel business with your intention being that you want to do this on your own someday. I think that the learning that I would encourage that person to seek is just sitting in the chair and doing the work, as opposed to like seeking the mentorship type of guidance that I've been faced with in many occasions.
Yes, and you can get a mentor without having to work for that mentor too. I mean, ASTA has a
Yes,
mentorship program, so you could sign up for the mentorship program and
also a
have a
great
mentor
point.
that has nothing to do with your business. And I'm sure host agencies probably have some sort of mentorship programs as well. But I would say if you are going to do that, if you're going to approach an owner and you're going to want to work under that person for that person as a salaried employee, I beg you to just be ethical because you're going to be
Yes.
servicing their clients. And when you leave one day, or if you leave one day and decide to open your own travel agency, you cannot take one single one of those clients. Those are the agency's clients. And yes, you booked 17 trips for them in the 5 years you worked there. But those clients came to that travel agency because of that travel agency owner and the reputation that they had, and everything about the agency, not you. And yes, you service them, but you got paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you leave, if you and I know a lot of people feel differently than I do on this, and I'd be curious to open up a conversation when you leave, why would you think those are your clients? Because you service them? Or like, because that I don't look at those as your clients. I look at those as the agency clients that you got paid to service while you worked there. Do you agree with that, Whitney? Or is that just my,
I
you
No,
know,
I do absolutely agree. I think if you are servicing a client, but if they didn't walk in the door originally because of you being out networking, creating new connections, talking about what you do and why what you do is important, like there's a difference between building a book of business and servicing a client inquiry. So I do agree
you'd
with
be
you.
shocked at how many people disagree with us. And I'm
People
shocked that they do.
So you're saying
Travel
there's a lot of people
advisors,
who believe that if they were the personal advisor in touch with the client for many years or for many trips, that they own that client.
100%. They think I did my job so well that this client kept coming back, and therefore it is my client. I developed that relationship. They are my client, not the agency's client. And I'm just like, I mean, at the end of the day, if the agency owner is treating their employees well and running the business well, that should never come up. That should not be an issue because we're all just one big happy family, and we're all together here to support and help these clients have amazing vacations. But when there does become a separation between the agency and the advisor, those things get kind of messy, which is why contracts are super important. But contracts also can't always be enforced, and that is kind of a hot button item for me is whether or not those clients belong to the agency or the advisor who's leaving to start their own agency and then become basically a competitor, which is a weird dynamic. I've mentored you for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and now you want to go out and become, and I may or may not have had this situation happen, so with
Well,
an IC. So,
yeah,
I mean, now you're my competitor
yeah. No, I
with all
wholeheartedly
my
agree
trade
with you.
secrets.
Um, I'm always open to a conversation and a discussion to understand a different perspective. But I think as entrepreneurs, the building the book of business part of entrepreneurship is the most difficult, in my opinion, is the most difficult part of all of this. I do not find um, talking to clients, selling travel, planning the itinerary, building my systems and workflows. I do not find those parts of the business to be difficult. I find the parts of my business to be difficult of like actually building that book of business that enjoys working with me, that is happy with the service that I provided, that wants to come back to me the next year, and that refers additional business. That is really difficult. And it's not the doing it again for the client who's already happy. It's getting them in the door the first place is the hardest
Right.
part.
Yes, but I know that some people have the train of thought. If I do my job well, that client is now happy with my service, not whatever marketing the agency owner did to bring them in the door. So it's a very interesting discussion. Matter of fact, you should have a whole podcast
To
on that
diminish
because
it to just marketing is what brought them in the door is offensive.
yeah, I know, especially when and I sometimes say, like, I've been running my travel agency for almost 30 years. This person came in the door possibly because of a referral that I booked a trip for 25 years ago. You know what I mean? Like
Yes,
that has been a
exactly.
long time. This has been a pot that's been, bubbling for a really long
People
time,
don't
and
come
you can't even put your finger on it.
people don't come to any office or business and hand over all of their vacation days and all of their, all of the disposable income that they have saved for this trip because of a brochure or because of a billboard.
Wouldn't it be great if they did?
we would all we would never have to talk about marketing, which is all people ask me about ad nauseum. To bring someone
Yeah,
in the door, it requires years of consistent, high quality connections and service delivery. Most people need to
decades.
hear about your business and to hear good things about your business from other humans multiple times before they are ready to give you all of their disposable income and leisure time.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, so we agree on this
We
point.
agree on
So
this.
maybe because I've gotten you completely off track of the topic, I'll
Like
bring us
three
back
times
to
now,
what would
Julie.
I do? I know, I'm so sorry. I just have so many opinions. What would we do differently if we were starting this business today? I will give you a low level answer to that.
First,
I
first,
would
first, first,
not
first.
communicate.
But sorry
Yes.
to cut you off. You did the you did work in the agencies at the very beginning, so I think you would do that again. Are there two or three other
Yes.
things that you would do exactly the same as you did? Like if you started over
Oh,
today, that
yes.
you would do again?
100%. Create a business name. I would get a domain name. I would get a bank account with that. These are all things I did with that business name. I would keep my finances completely separate from the business, from the personal. I would have a professional email address. I would do all of the things that you're supposed to do when you start a business.
Yes.
Again, if we opened up a sandwich shop, we wouldn't be running it out of the back of our house, and buying our food at Costco with our personal bank account. Like, we would do the things that you do when you have a business. And I mean, you can work from home and still have a business bank account. You should have a business name. A
100%.
domain name is really important because then you can have your professional email address.
Yes.
And I did do all of those things. And let me tell you, websites were only a couple years old. I was shocked that I was smart enough to get my business name's domain name in 1997 because that wasn't really important back then. But I'm really glad now,
Mhm.
um, because I had that domain name. And then years later, I got my LLC. We created an S corp. I got it trademarked. None of that
Yes.
was done year
Yes.
one, but getting the right
The
credentials and
fundamental, like
having.
foundational starting a business, like we're going to bucket all of these things together because I wholeheartedly agree. I did that on day one and I would do that absolutely again. Like that would just, that's step number one for
It
sure.
should be non-negotiable. There
Yeah.
should be licensing I mean, and a lot of states do require you have a business license if you're going to operate a business, but some don't. So now you're just, people are out there, so many different business models and trains of thought on that. But
Mhm.
those are the things that I did do and would do again, and would say anybody opening any business in any industry should do.
Agreed.
And there should be a law requiring it.
So, work in a travel agency. I also appreciate that you had both corporate and leisure, like you had a variety of travel industry experience. I think that's probably what I would add to mine is like I worked in a hotel, but it's like related, but not because I was in operations and not sales. So, like you could work.
I always wished I worked in a hotel. I feel like that's the missing piece. I've done corporate leisure, airline res. I never worked in a hotel. That
Yeah,
would have been
like
cool.
I think work in a hotel, and it could be any position, but just see the behind the scenes of how a hotel operates is interesting. You
And
can
how people
also
operate when they travel. That's a really interesting perspective as well. It's really good to be able to see when people come into a hotel, if you're working the front desk, what they're like when they first get off of a,
Mhm,
a a
mhm.
long flight.
It's a great
So,
point. Work for a supplier. Like you can work for a
yeah.
cruise line or a tour, like a multi-day tour company, like a Tauk or a Backroads or something like this. Work in a reservation department, whether it's air or a big kind of like hotel, like global kind of brand that would have central reservations. And then also work in an agency. Like if you want to learn the industry, I think, like you've said, it's not going to be a tourism degree teaching you where to be on a cruise ship to not get seasick. Go do the job.
Right.
Like
Yeah, it's OJT.
consider it
But
like a
with all
management internship type of experience. Go do the job because you might also
but
discover
so many
things that interest you that you didn't know were a position or were possible.
existed. Right. But I do think the problem with that is that so many people that want to work in the travel industry are already a nurse or a teacher, or they have some other full time job, and they want to be able to still do that to make the income, to be able to live the lifestyle that they've created and have the health benefits and all the things, and then start building this travel business. So in 10, 15, 20 years, they can retire from that first job and make this side gig their main job. But so you can't just walk away from being a nurse to go work in a travel
Yeah, I guess these
agency.
are
I
two
mean,
totally
unless you want to go
different
all in.
scenarios. Like this is someone who's 18 or 25 and trying to enter the travel industry versus what you've shared is also a very valid perspective of, well, I'm already working full time. I can't just hop around and try out different jobs. So I think that's a totally different situation. Um,
Yeah. So you're thinking that for the younger, you're the point of view you want right now is the younger people who want to get into the travel industry before they open a business at age 22, what would they do? And then yes, you can still live at home, or you can live, you don't have kids and a mortgage and all the things that you will have at 32.
Now,
So
if you
yes.
are currently a nurse or a real estate agent or, doing whatever and you're looking for a side gig, I still stand by be an assistant for an agency. Like I still stand by that advice. Like actually that's a great side gig. Like get your
Yes.
hourly rate. It's, probably flexible hours. It's not, a lot of advisors are looking for 10 or 20 hours a week and just start learning a little bit about what this actually is and what it means to work in the travel industry. I still stand by that advice regardless of where you are in life.
True, and you get your foot in the door at a travel agency, and you can then just grow with the company, and then maybe you can just quietly phase out of whatever you were doing if you decide that this hectic, crazy life is for you. But yeah, I agree. Working
So
within the business is very
So
important.
do something in the industry. Like we're on the
Do
same page.
something.
Um, fun like complete the foundational like starting of your business and make it official. Is there
Like
anything else?
apprenticeship. Like if you wanted to be a plumber, you would probably work under a plumber for a while before becoming a plumber. I
I
mean,
agree.
like
I agree.
it's
In
yeah,
other
I think we're on the same
industries, this is
page.
just what you do, and for some reason in ours, it is just not that. I don't know
It's a
when or
free
if this
for
is
all.
ever going to change, but at the moment, our industry does not just automatically work like this. Um,
I think
before
Asta's working towards having a little bit more
I hope so.
structure,
I
but
support
yeah,
that
it
as
might not be
well.
in our lifetime.
Any other ideas of what you did do and that you would absolutely do again?
Probably networking. And I didn't do it because I wanted to, because I'm an extroverted introvert. But I was out in the community. I had kids, so I was out doing all the things, school, sports, all the things. And because I'd already been in this industry for so many years, people just knew me as that. I hear a lot of people saying that people forget that I do this. Nobody forgets that I do this. It's just, I mean, it's like I have it tattooed on my forehead. I mean, before I became an adult, I was this. So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't have to scream it from the rooftops as much, but if I did, I would. I mean, don't let people forget that you do this.
Mhm.
And so many people don't want to ask for the sale, don't want to, and I know with MLMs, there's a lot of pushy people that will message people, don't forget to buy my shakes and all the things, but it's not that.
It's
It's
not
just
that.
reminding people when you do this job that you are available for them, because I mean if you don't do this full time, people will forget and people will ask you the question, are you still doing the travel thing, which
Yes.
I've never been asked that question. I find that kind of funny because no, of course I am. I'd be dead if I wasn't. Like what else would I do? I'm not qualified for anything. Target wouldn't even hire me. I have zero qualifications outside of this. Like I got nothing. So I don't get asked that question, but so many people I hear do. And it's like, you have to remind people what you do. You have to post when you're traveling, post even when you're not traveling to make it look like you're traveling. You have to let people know that you know your stuff and and you're available for them if they want to plan some travel. You can do it without being pushy. You can be organic about it, but definitely remind people that you're doing this,
Yeah. You're
still
actually
doing this.
this feels like a harsh reminder of what I did do at the beginning. And I didn't enjoy a minute of it, but a couple times a week I forced myself to get out of my apartment, to go meet new people, to talk about what I was doing. I was doing it in person, I was doing it online. it was
I know.
painful
And
for
it's
me. I'm
torture.
I'm similar to you. I'm
I
an
hate it
extroverted
too.
introvert,
Mm.
and I would need to recover for 4 days after every 1 hour human
Yeah. Yeah, oh,
interaction that I
yeah.
had.
I take a week off after a bridal expo, just talking to brides for 3 hours. My husband's like, "Really? It was a couple of hours talking to some people." I'm like, "It killed me. I need a week off." So,
And what's so interesting is I think about a lot of the networking that I did do early on, and I would say that the vast majority of it felt worthless to me. Like I didn't feel like a lot of leads came from it, or a lot of like, good business or whatever. But even when a single lead didn't come from an event, because after the fact I realized that probably wasn't the right event for me to be at, I still had to practice talking to people about what I do all day, every day. And so it was
yeah.
never a waste of time. At the bare minimum,
Never.
I was
Yeah.
out interacting with humans who were essentially strangers, talking about what I did and why it mattered. And that repetition and that practice is so important for when you are eventually in front of someone who is your ideal client and they're
100%. I
wondering
remember
why they
when
should work with you.
yes, when my kids were little, we had the same pediatrician for 20 something years. And I didn't do this on purpose, but it was kind of genius. And I wish I could take credit for having done it on purpose. But every time I would take one of the kids in to see her, I would casually mention in the conversation, well, we have a trip coming up, or I'm traveling, or I can't, that appointment won't work. And she would ask, oh, you travel a lot? And I'd be like, well, I own a travel agency. And I would always sprinkle that in. Not, again, it was maybe subconscious. 15 years into our relationship, she booked a trip with me. And I was like, I wasn't trying to turn into a client. I'm not that person that's going to go out and try to get every single person. I just organically would have conversations about traveling, and it just kind of stuck in her head, I guess. And
Mhm.
and then over the years, she would refer people to me. And next thing you know, I've got like 10 doctors who now book trips with me 20 something years later, because when my now 29-year-old was 2, I mentioned that we were going to beaches in a
Yep.
grill. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's the longest game you'll ever
Oh,
play, but
yes.
when you play it, the payoff is tremendous.
Yes.
It's all worth it. But
Agreed.
little examples like that, I mean, every school party, I mean, I was known as the travel lady, like, oh, that's the lady who does like that. In my community, I was the lady who does the travel,
That's amazing.
so you just have to become that person. I
You do.
go on TV, I do local talk shows. If there's a thing in the news about travel, they will contact me. I get on even if I don't want to, because you just have to keep reminding
Mhm.
people who you are and what you do, and that you're still doing it, and that you're, you know, the person. You're
Yeah.
the person who knows everything.
I love
So
this.
it's hard though. If you don't have that personality, get out now because
I
it's
Actually, I was thinking the same. Like, if
necessary.
hearing this makes you uncomfortable, like, this is what it takes to build a book of business. This is what I'm talking about when I say that, like, a brochure is not what got someone to email you or walk in that front door. It's
Right.
this.
And even if you plan an amazing trip, that's great, but they're not always going to come back to you for that. You have to keep keeping yourself, because honestly, I learned this at a conference once. You can book 5 amazing trips over the course of 5 years from someone. And if on a Saturday morning they're sitting around drinking coffee, thinking about their next trip, and they happen to get an email from Expedia, they're going to call Expedia or click the button in that email. They're not always going to remember that you did an amazing job those last 5 times. And that is a really hard pill to swallow, because we take all of this so personally and so seriously. And we think we own that client for life, but we don't. So it's not just doing the amazing thing for all their trips, it's reminding them that you exist, because they forget about you very quickly,
It's
which is
true.
sad, because you think of them as friends and you think of their trips as your babies,
Uh-huh.
and they don't.
It's true.
It's a
It's true.
transaction for them. I know, sad.
Okay, so 43 minutes in, should we chat about what you would do differently? It's okay.
Yes, one thing that I really am almost embarrassed to say that I did a lot in the beginning is allow clients to dictate how we communicated. And a lot of them, especially because of the timing of it all, was on Facebook Messenger.
Mm.
And I am horrified to say sometimes I'll look back and I plan an entire trip on Facebook Messenger. Somebody would message me at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and say, hey, we want to go to Jamaica. And I'd be like, cool, let's do it. And like instantly got them rates, sent quotes through Facebook Messenger. They would, ghost me for a week, because that's not how you do business. And I would keep following up. And it was just a really embarrassing transaction. And I really regret it, because I think it did not instill professionalism in their minds, and it made them think that this was a hobby. And it was never a hobby for me. But if it is a hobby for someone, it's even more of a hobby if you're communicating through Facebook Messenger or any like, Instagram DMs or Facebook was all we had at the time.
Yeah.
So that's why I go with Facebook. But yeah, that's one thing I really, really regret ever doing, which
So
sounds small, but it's not small.
it's
It's
not
big.
small at all. I think it makes me think of liability concerns. It makes me think of
Hmm.
like organization and
Paper
optimization,
trail.
and like
Yep.
just keeping organized and making sure that when you're looking for something, you can find it and you're not scrolling through Facebook messages or Instagram or
Mm,
whatever it is. And then it's also professionalism, right? Like
exactly.
if you want someone to take you professionally or take you seriously as a professional, then communicate with them as a professional would over email.
Would you Facebook message your CPA and ask him a question about your taxes?
No,
Never.
no,
Because he's a
you
professional and he wouldn't even
exactly,
respond if you did.
exactly,
So yeah,
exactly.
the level of the paper trail, like you said, and the organization, of course. But I think first and foremost, it's the just the professionalism that you're lacking if you're doing that, or the appearance of it. You might be
So
the
it's
biggest professional on the planet, but it doesn't appear that you are if you're communicating
exactly.
through
So
Facebook.
it's a boundary, but it's a boundary very specifically related to correspondence and communication.
Exactly. Yeah, and the boundaries are huge. I live and die by boundaries now, but I had none then. In the beginning, I had none because again, and I try to be understanding because I know a lot of people are still building their business. And when you're building your business, you have to do things that you maybe don't want to do or agree with or would do later if you had the choice. But I schedule all of my phone calls. I will never answer a phone, just cold call ever. I mean, I have an office manager, so she takes the calls, but I'll never be available. If somebody calls the office and asks for me,
Yeah,
I'm not available
right.
because I just can't flip my brain from doing all the things to just taking a call and asking, having a
Yeah, I
question like that.
agree. I think that the on the boundaries topic, like of course our boundaries now are at a much higher, like let's say strict or severe stage as they would be if we started all over today and if we were truly starting over and building that book of business. But there are loose boundaries are still better than no boundaries. So I think like when
Yes,
I
very good
started,
point.
I had no boundaries. I was
Me
scheduling
too.
calls, but I would also just answer if you called me. I was not charging a fee at the very beginning. So there were just all these kind of things that I thought that I was being flexible to give people the confidence to kind of try me out for the first time. Like I thought that I was trying to like I thought what I was doing was okay, but none of those first clients still work with me. Like
Yes,
let's just
isn't
say
that
that.
funny? Right, right. The ones that, yeah, when we started charging fees, we lost a lot of clients. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. The people that know exactly what we do for them, the people we've bent over backwards for years and years and years won't pay a fee. But literal strangers who've never worked with us will pay it without batting an eye. That is very telling of the client base I had the first 10 years versus the client base that we have now. And I much prefer the client base that we have now because
Yes. Oh
they
yeah.
see us, they treat us as a professional service business, and we are, and we carry ourselves as such, and everybody's happy. But I also get that you do have to start somewhere. You do have to work with whoever's willing to work with you in the beginning in order to
Mhm.
build that. So
Yes.
it's kind of a double-edged sword,
You
which is
you
why it'd be
can
nice if you
work
worked at a travel agency.
you can work with whoever's willing to work with you while you also charge a low fee, right? Like a low fee is still a boundary and over time as your business progresses, you charge a higher fee. When someone cuts your hair and they are brand new, their rate is lower and it slowly increases. No one is doing a service for you in any industry for no money at all. No one.
I know. The hard part is, though, that there is commission involved in our industry, and people know it, and they question that. But I will
If
always
you make the
say,
sale and 6
yeah,
to 12
exactly.
months later,
I think a lot of these people don't understand that it's after you travel, if you travel, and they don't care.
right.
So that's a whole nother conversation, honestly. But yeah, you got to have a fee, even if it's, $50 just to have skin in the game.
Yeah,
And if you are working for free, you can't get mad that you're working for free
sure.
because you allowed that.
Yeah.
And I say that about myself. Before we started charging fees, I was always upset when somebody would ghost me after working doing all the hard work. But whose fault was that? I allowed it. So yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of fees these days. Big
What
fees.
what else would you do differently in addition to the boundaries
Um,
stuff?
The boundaries thing. Yeah, that's a tough one. I get, not work with clients who I didn't think were a good fit. And even though I know you do have to really work with people who aren't a good fit in the beginning to build, they're the ones that you should have never taken that on. They're only looking for the cheapest, 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 cheapest thing, and they're going to use you and abuse you and walk all over you and chew you up and spit you out, and they will be pretty rough, and that's not good for your psyche. It's not worth the $67 commission that you might make on that sale to be abused like that. You have to not let people disrespect you. And I consider myself a pretty tough cookie. And even after having been in the business for 10 years and starting my own, but from scratch, I took on some clients that were really abusive. And I look back and they caused me so much, like, I almost want to say trauma. I mean, to the point where my entire family knew these people by name, like, because
Mhm.
all I did was complain about them and stress about them and worry about them and let them just walk all over me. And it's just not a good feeling. It's like, if your daughter lets her boyfriend just,
Mhm.
use her and abuse her, you just want to be like, don't do it. It's not worth it. You're better off
I
alone. It's
think
kind of like that.
like this situation is so hard to be like, well, if I did it all over again, I wouldn't let that happen. And I think if you're starting fresh and you haven't really worked with a lot of clients, it's like hard to even identify that like this isn't normal. Like you can maybe in your gut, you're like, this person's really not being very respectful. But like if you're new, you're still trying to gauge like what's acceptable, what's normal, is this person really an exception, does this person just need to be managed a little bit, like you're still kind of like learning the ropes in that regard. But I think that what would be supportive in that is having a circle of advisors around you so that you can say, hey, is this normal?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any of you ever experienced this, or like is it time for me to find the words to say we're gonna cut this off?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because when I started my agency, there was no community, none. I knew not a single travel advisor in the world, like
Mhm.
literally. Like I didn't have any friends that were travel advisors. There was no social media. There were no networking groups. I went to very few events because I was just still building and I wasn't invited to a lot. And I also had little kids, so I wasn't able to go to a lot. So I had nobody to ask those questions. I was
Yeah.
alone on an island. So if you can get yourself a network, get yourself a
Like
network because even though they won't be mentors, they'll be partner,
peers.
like
Like,
sisters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. The
Yeah.
connecting and the networking at the very beginning is just as important with folks in the industry as folks like who could be potentially clients. Like there it's almost like two
Yes.
separate types of networking and connecting that I feel are so important at the beginning.
Yeah, and if you aren't sure that this client is, what they're doing is normal, or if this is you kind of do, your gut. If you get through one trip and you're like, that was torture, at least don't take on the next time they call you because they're going to call you because they loved abusing you. They got what they wanted. They
Yeah.
went on a great trip. You did everything, broke your back for them, and they didn't have to pay you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for them, that was a win. They're going to call you again. And they might even refer people to you. So you can't just take, well, they referred everybody to me. Now I got to book this trip. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can refuse to work with someone. And we've done it recently. And it's a really good feeling to say, I don't think we're a good fit. Or I'm just too busy to take this on right now. I mean, there's no reason they have to know the
Right.
truth,
Sure.
just say, I'm
Sure.
not taking any more trips for the next 30 days. And, you can tactfully get out of it. But I think if you feel a gut feeling about a client, don't work with them again or at all if you can
Agreed.
avoid it.
Outside of the boundaries conversation, because I know it's a really big one, but what like totally different category of things? Like what would you do differently if you started over today?
Well, I don't know if this is relevant today because of the year that we're in, but I did not have a CRM for the first 20 years. I
Whoa.
operated with color coded file folders, but because also technology wasn't where it was at
Yeah.
today. I mean, in 1997, did CRMs even exist? I don't know. Probably not.
I don't
Maybe in
know.
different industries. I don't know if it did here or not, but I never worked on a CRM when I worked in
Sure.
travel agencies.
Sure.
We had filing cabinets. That's how it was done. So I was just doing everything and I didn't have a network of people to ask these questions of. But about 20 years in, maybe 15, I remember thinking, there's got to be a better way to collect a client's credit card. I can't keep doing this over the phone because this is now a 20-minute conversation every time I need to get
Yes.
a credit card. And then I'm writing it down. This is
That
crazy.
was me on day
So
one.
I
This is not sustainable.
Yes, exactly, but I did that for, I don't know, 15, 18 years, and then Facebook groups started becoming a thing, and I started, meeting other travel advisors at events, and I was like, "How do you guys do it? Are you guys just, like, taking credit cards over the phone?" And a couple people were old school like me, and they were, and other people were like, "Girl, get yourself a CRM." What's a CRM? And life changing. And there might be people listening to this who are a little older who don't feel comfortable with technology, or their host does, or they're with a small host that doesn't use the CRM or require one. But if you are that person, get a CRM
Mhm.
because it will literally change your life if you're not operating with one yet. I mean, I just there's nothing in my business more valuable to me than my CRM.
Now you have a pretty good sized team and support around you. If you were to start an agency all over again today, I wouldn't imagine that we would necessarily start with a bunch of support because you need to
No.
build up the business again. But would you do anything about building that support differently?
I 100% would. I knew I needed help about 5 years in, and I was desperate, but I still wasn't making a lot of money where I felt like I could pay somebody, a salary. And of course, when you're in this business, people come to you and they want to do what you do. They see what you do. They are excited. They want to do it. And so they're like, "How do I do this? How do I get?" And you're like, "Ooh, somebody wants to help me. This is great." So you take on an IC. And I took on IC after IC after IC after IC, and to the point where I had more ICs that I could handle. I never wanted to be a host. I loved to mentor, but I didn't want to host. I wasn't, and I truly don't think I was qualified to be a host because I didn't have the time to do the training and the education like a real host should. And so I just took on a bunch of ICs thinking they were going to help me run my business. And instead, they were building their own businesses and sucking the life out of me with, peppering with me with questions all day long. And I couldn't then focus on my own clients. And I don't know why I thought by taking on ICs, I thought I was going to maybe farm out some of those clients to these ICs. And that would take me back to a conversation we had earlier. If I had farmed out some of my clients, and I did sometimes, to more like the ones who really knew a lot about Disney, I would give Disney clients to them because that was just what was in the best interest of the client. But then whose client is that? Is that mine as the agency? I gave it to an IC who really is her own agency. So now, did I give that up? So that's a gray area and a conversation for another day. But I really regret taking on as many ICs as I did so early on. I should have taken on fewer, the good, the ones who were going to produce, and gotten an admin for all of us to share, even if it was 10 hours a week, just for some sort. But and I'm sure a lot of people can agree with this. I was so afraid that nobody would do it as well as me. I was so afraid that if I hired somebody, they would run a credit card wrong. They would not treat my business as their own. They would, make all the mistakes in the world. And when I finally hired somebody, an actual employee, probably 5 years later than I should have, I realized very quickly that she was more qualified than I was to do those tasks because I was too busy doing all the other things. And you can't focus on the big things and also run a credit card payment and not make mistakes. So our business doubled the year that I hired my first salaried employee. Doubled. So she more than paid for herself in that. And I've never looked back. Honestly, I've just continued to add employees, and I just think it's a really great business model for me.
So, if you were to start your agency all over again today, what indicators would you look for to kind of know, like, as a business owner, okay, it's time to hire, it's time to hire an employee. This is the type of support that that person, like, these are the things that that person is going to support me with. Like, how would you evaluate that situation if you started all over today and eventually, like, make that decision of when and how to do it?
If I felt things were falling through the cracks, or I was not getting back to clients as quickly as I wanted to, or I was spending more time getting seat assignments and calling airlines and processing payments than I was actually designing trips, I would know that it was time to get some help. I think the kind of the benchmark is when you're selling $1 million. If you're selling $1 million, you need help. You probably should have gotten help at 750, but you can kind of manage if you're doing it full time. If you're doing it part time, you probably need help long before 750. But if you hit that million mark and you don't have help, you're going to crash and burn. So get the help before you need the help. You might feel like, well, I'm not there yet. I don't, but you have to staff the business for the business you want, not the business you have. So if you wait until it's you're ready for the help, you've waited too long. So you got to get ahead of it. Even if it feels scary, hire your sister-in-law, somebody, a stay-at-home mom who just wants to make, a couple of bucks and help you out. It doesn't have to be some, corporate setting formal employee with a 401k. It can be a very, very part-time family member or friend or somebody who's just willing to dive in and help you, but you can't do it alone. And if you think you can, you're going to be sadly awoken from that dream pretty soon.
Well, and I think it's in addition to understanding that you absolutely will need help, it's not if you need help, it's when you'll need help. Then
Mhm.
that also changes your perspective as a new business owner. Instead of thinking, as my sales increase, I get to pay myself more, I get to earn more money, you're still not thinking about it as a business, you're thinking about it as a hobby. Whereas if you go into it as a brand new business owner saying, okay, I think I can get from A to B by myself, bringing in clients, working on my systems, getting my CRM, like getting everything optimized. And at about approximately this point, I'm going to need to hire. So now, how can I financially plan to make sure that I have the funding to hire that person when I need to hire them? Like that's a business perspective. And I don't hear a lot of advisors with that perspective. A lot of times it's like, well, I need help, but I don't have the money. It's like, no, no. If you have this revenue, you do have the money. You just don't want to pay yourself less. You like,
You don't want to part with the money.
yeah,
And you can also find the money. If you hire an admin, they can probably upsell some tours for clients. If you book a Hawaii trip and you weren't really going to add on too many excursions for them, that admin can do that. They can register all of your bookings with the hotel chains that pay bonus cash, and that bonus cash alone can say pay her salary. So the money's there. You just have to find it. And you might have to pay yourself a little less for a bit, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. I mean, if you've ever been traveling and had to leave the Vatican tour that you're on to take a call from a client, you need help. Like you need help. You can't take calls while you're traveling and run a credit card payment from a hotel hotspot. I mean, that should be something somebody's doing back in your office, even if it's a home office while you're traveling, because you're supposed to be immersed in that travel so you can come back and sell it to your clients well.
yeah,
And if you're still juggling the business while you're on the road, it's just not the best way for your business and for your mental health to try to operate.
yeah,
But again, I know it's scary. Paying salaries is a really scary thing.
yeah.
Not just the
Um,
money, how do I do it? How do I do payroll? A lot of
right.
people are like, I don't even know how to do payroll. Get a good CPA.
Well, and also this is where your advisor network comes in. Like you're not the only one. There is someone else doing it. Surround yourself with people who you can ask questions and kind of help, figure this
Yeah.
out together and also get a good
Yeah, don't
CPA.
reinvent the wheel. We've
No.
already we've all already invented the wheel. Why would you reinvent it?
Yeah.
Just ask the question.
Back to the $1 million. So there's just one like little like clarifying detail I want to add here. If you're booking $1 million, which with a bunch of $10,000 vacations, you're planning 100 trips in a year. If you're booking $1 million with a bunch of $25,000 vacations, you're booking 40 trips in a year. I think that not it's less about in my mind, it's less about the revenue and it's more about the volume. How many
Right.
individual trips are you working on? How many individual clients are in your inbox asking you questions? How many individual payments and flights and final payments and what's the volume of all these things that you're doing? And so if the revenue feels like it's paralyzing, I would actually say I think that I didn't hire support until I was in like the 60 to 70 trip range, maybe even 70 and above. And I wish that I would have started thinking about hiring part time support in an employee, like a part time employee, more around the 50 to 60 range in terms of volume, like the number of trips I was planning per year.
Yeah. What that looks like for each individual advisor is probably different
Sure.
based on the destinations they sell, what their niche is. I mean, I
Yeah.
I don't know how the Disney agents do it. I mean, the number of things that a Disney agent has to do to just get one trip,
Yeah.
I mean, you can
You're right.
do one sandals trip in 2 minutes and make 10,000. You can do a Disney trip and make a $10,000 trip and make
Yeah.
1,500, or a Disney trip twice the cost, half the commission, and you've got 10,000 more tasks. I
Yeah.
mean, you have
Exactly.
to look at what it,
Yeah.
but yeah, if you are just pulling your hair out trying to get the little stuff done, I mean, I don't want to, um, you know, make it sound like we're more important than we are, but, like, there are just certain jobs that are kind of beneath you once you get to a certain level because your time is so valuable and so much more well spent planning this itinerary for your clients than it is sitting on hold for an airline or a cruise line for an hour, you
Yep.
know? I mean, there's somebody that would love to do that because they just wanna make a little extra cash. They're not trying to own a business or be a travel advisor or change the world. They just wanna make some cash, and if you wanna pay them 10 bucks an hour to sit on hold, they'll happily do it. So why are you doing it, you know? I mean, just find that person, and they exist.
Agreed.
I mean, find a mom whose kids are in school and she just wants to do something during the day, but she's not really looking to go all in with anything. She will be your girl. Moms know how to run homes. They know how to run businesses. They can do it. So
Agreed.
they exist. You just have to find them.
Julie, your experience in the industry is incredible. And I really appreciate you coming to chat with me about this and to really like, I just love this like thought exercise of like, if we were to start over again today, like what would we do the same and what would we do differently? And I appreciate you being willing to kind of chat through this with me and get distracted a few or many times.
I would get distracted with you anytime you ask me to, Whitney.
Amazing. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. And when you come up with more
Thank
ideas on
you.
what you might do the same or different, let me know because I feel like this could go on for a few hours.
Yeah, we need a part two for sure.
Perfect.